Right now, David Stokes joins us from Show Me a Suit. Good morning, David Stokes.
Good morning, McGraw. Good morning, Farrah.
Good morning, David.
How was your Labor Day weekend?
It was fantastic.
Good.
Got out of town with my wife and kids up to Michigan and just...
Did you bring the sticks?
Yeah, I played golf twice.
So you left your wife and kids in Michigan to go play golf?
Well, I played with the boys one time.
Oh, okay. All
so
right.
I played with... And we only play 9 up there. So the other time when I did, in fact, leave the family,
Yes.
I only left the family for...
For 9.
For 2 hours.
Which is certainly understandable. Okay,
Right.
good. All right. So there's somehow been this sort of debate that's sort of started here in St. Louis about whether or not it's time for the zoo to start charging admission. And
The zoo and
and
the art museum and other cultural institutions.
and some other cultural institutions, because the Botanical Garden, all part of that zoo museum district, charges people, whereas the others don't. So it's sort of mix and matching here. So your thoughts as the Show Me Institute Director of Development, what are your thoughts as you sit and you watch this debate?
Well, I'm glad we're having it. And it's, this metropolitan area has changed so much since it was instituted in the early 70s.
Right.
Where in St. Louis City and St. Louis County made up a substantial majority of the metropolitan area. And now it's less than 50% of the people of the area live in St. Louis and County. So it is time to discuss a change. And for the most part, I agree that it's probably time to start charging admission to people who don't live in St. Louis City or county.
Because
there's a lot of options here. We could scrap the Zoo Museum District and charge admission to everybody.
Right.
We could keep it for the city and county and charge admission to everybody else except residents of the city and county. We could expand the Zoo Museum District and see if people would like to do that. So there's really all these options here. But I do think it's no longer possible to keep a system where city and county residents pay for the whole thing, and people in the rest of the metro area and us don't put in at all, either admission or tax.
What is shocking to me in all of this is that we had this guest on last week, 2 weeks ago, talking about this. And the amount of calls I got of people very upset, they sort of define themselves and visualize themselves and are equated with a free zoo. And to tell them that the zoo is no longer free, it almost makes me think they think they're not St. Louisans if you have to charge for the zoo.
Well, it's a very popular thing here. Like I'm not coming out here and saying get rid of the Zoo Museum District. Like
let's do it now. Yeah.
I'm born and raised here. Like I like it. I like it too. It's a part of it. It's a part of sort of who we are, the
Right.
free zoo, free in quotes, because I live in St. Louis County, so
yes.
I'm paying property taxes.
It's nice because it's a free zoo for me since I live in St. Charles County.
So I'd like to see, first and foremost, sort of under the guise of let's get as much information as we can before we maybe make the next decision.
Why would we want to do that?
Right.
That's a weird way of making a decision.
That's not how democracy works. I'd like to see it put on the ballot in St. Charles, Jefferson, and Franklin County, and perhaps even...
What about Southern Illinois?
Well, that gets a little trickier because taxing districts across state lines is very complicated, but
Okay.
if possible, sure. But let's put it on the ballot in St. Charles and Jefferson and Franklin and see, would you like to be included in the Zoo Museum District? And if not, please understand that admission charges are going to be very likely. It can't just be a... Yes, you'll pay property taxes, or no, it'll maintain as
Right.
a free zoo. I mean, the option.
See,
and let people decide.
I think you should go the other way. I think you should put on the ballot that all people, St. Louis and St. Charles County, you vote and you pay for through your property tax, an increase in property taxes, and therefore allow all out-of-towners to go to Cardinal games for free, and see how well that goes right, because I mean that's what you're doing. It's an entertainment venue which we are paying for the rest of the world to come to see for quote unquote free.
So let me
Well,
just
there are. That's
Yeah.
that's. I get you the point you're making, of course, but there are obviously important distinctions between a cultural institution and a pure business like the Cardinals. So I don't.
They don't pay Raja $20 million to hang out in his pen.
Right. Although I understand Raja is hiring Scott Boras as his agent, so this could all change shortly.
the polar bear needs an agent as well. So let me play devil's advocate with you. And when you look at the places around the country that people want to go to on vacation for the summer because they have families and they want to do it on a budget, St. Louis inevitably is one of those places because because of this dynamic that we have of, free zoos and free art institutions and free parks and all of that. So those people then come and put money in because they, stay at the hotels and they buy things. Where do you think that fits in?
Well, I think if the people of St. Charles, Jefferson, Franklin, perhaps Southern Illinois, said, yes, we'd like to be included in the Zoo Museum District in order to maintain no admission charges, well, then I think we could maintain free admission charges for everybody. If you could expand the base of the property tax district to support the zoo, the art museum, the history museum, and then it sort of becomes moot. We could be able to afford maintaining free admission for out-of-town guests who come in frequently. And I don't think there'd be anything wrong with that. But let's get the information from the other voters first.
It's a free admission, but let's not. I mean, look, you have to pay to go onto the train. You have to pay to park. You have to pay for your soda. So it isn't like you can show up with no money and you get to go and see the zoo.
Right. Most people who attend certainly spend something.
So it's a marketing ploy in a sense. Oh, it's a free zoo, great. But in a sense, you're paying a lot of money to go to a free zoo.
But if you're of limited means and you really want to pack a lunch and eat a picnic lunch in the park and park outside of the lot and walk a little, you can go to the zoo for free. If financially speaking, you need to do that, you can make a great day of it very cheaply.
I got 5 seconds. Where do we find you?
ShowMeInstitute.org, and we've got an event tomorrow morning on minimum wage debates at our office, 7:30 a.m. ShowMeInstitute.org to sign up.
KTR St. Louis.